Your feeder's been out there for weeks. You picked the red one, filled it with the right mix, hung it where you could see it from the kitchen window. And you've gotten maybe 2 hummingbirds, one at dusk, gone before you could even set down your coffee. Meanwhile, your neighbor's yard is basically a hummingbird highway, and you can't figure out what you're doing wrong. Here's the thing. You're not doing anything wrong. The advice you got was wrong. Every tag that says hummingbird plant in big letters, every end cap at the garden center stacked with red doubles and perfumed things. It sold you color when what a hummingbird actually needs is a tube. Long, narrow, nectar-loaded tubes that fit their bill like a key fits a lock. That's it. That's the whole secret. Get the shape right, and you stop needing tricks. These 7 flowers are the ones that flip a hummingbird's hardware on. They're built for the bird, not the display shelf. We'll go through all 7, and by the end, you'll know how to stage them so you get passes all season long. I'm saving the one honeysuckle vine that turns on daily visits for months for near the end, because that one deserves its own moment. Let's start with the plant that makes them stay. You've probably had the experience where you catch a flash of green and red, and by the time you look up, it's gone. Hit and run. That's what happens when there isn't enough payoff per flower to make the bird slow down. Bee balm fixes that. What you're looking at when you see a bee balm head is not one flower. It's a ring of narrow tubes, maybe a dozen or more, all loaded and waiting. A hummingbird can sit in front of that head and lick at 13 to 17 times per second without shifting position. It's a buffet, not a snack. They tank up, they linger, they come back because they've learned the patch is worth defending. The species you want is Monarda didyma, specifically a red single-form cultivar. Jacob Klein is a good one, mildew tough, which matters because mildew is the thing that takes bee balm down mid-season and shuts off the bloom. Avoid anything labeled a double or a pom-pom. Those extra petals bury the nectar, and the bird can't get in efficiently. Single open tubes only. Plant in clumps of 3 to 5, about 18 inches apart. Full sun or light afternoon shade. When a head finishes, cut it back about 4 inches. Don't just pull the petals off. Cut the stem, and it'll push new side shoots and more blooms. Water deeply once a week in drought. Don't baby it beyond that. This is your early to mid-summer anchor. The first big stop on the relay you're building. Salvias have a reputation for being either a bee plant or fussy to keep going. Neither one is true for this one. Salvia guaranitica, anise sage, throws long hooded tubes from midsummer all the way to frost, and it barely asks anything of you in return. The flower is built for a hummingbird bill. The corolla is long and narrow, sized almost exactly right, and the dark calyx against the bright blue-violet petals makes a fast visual target. Birds learn it quickly. Every morning, a new set of tubes opens on each spike. The plant keeps presenting fresh nectar day after day without you doing much. Black and blue is the cultivar you'll see most often. It's reliable, and it performs. It gets 3 to 5 feet tall, so give it room. In zone 7 and warmer, it comes back as a perennial. Everywhere else, treat it like an annual, and it will still give you months of bloom. Pinch the tips once early in the season to make it bushy instead of leggy. 1 pinch, done. It works in a container near your seating if that's all you have. The same deadheading logic from bee balm applies here. Cut spent spikes. Back to encourage new ones. This is your bridge from midsummer into fall when a lot of other things are quitting. Most people think hummingbird season starts in summer. So spring comes and goes, and you never know you missed them. Aquilegia canadensis, eastern red columbine, blooms in spring, often April into June, depending on where you are. And it's one of the first confirmed hovers you'll get each year. The flower has a trick. Those backward-pointing spurs hold nectar deep inside, so deep that most short-tongued bees simply can't get in. A hummingbird's tongue coils and uncoils to reach it. The flower is literally built for the bird and no one else. So the nectar sits there, untouched by competitors, until a hummer shows up. First thing in the season, your yard becomes a stop on their mental map. That matters all summer. Scatter 5 to 7 starts in part sun or light shade. It likes a woodland edge feel, but it doesn't need full shade. Let it self-sow. It'll spread itself slowly into a bigger and bigger drift with no work from you. If you want to extend the bloom a little, deadhead a few stalks early and leave others to set seed. It's a small plant, not a showstopper on its own, but as the first rung on the bloom relay, it earns its spot. August hits, and your garden is baking, and the flowers that looked good in June are either done or hanging on by a thread. You assume the birds have moved on because there's nothing left to offer. Penstemon barbatus, scarlet bugler, is the answer to that. It's a western native, built for lean, dry conditions, and it runs long, upright spikes of narrow red tubes that hang at just the right angle for a hovering bird to work without fighting for position. The tube diameter is tight enough that bees can't get in efficiently. The nectar belongs to the bird. Once it's established, and that takes one season, it barely needs water, full sun, lean, well-drained soil, and you step back. Heavy fertilizer will make it floppy. Skip it. The same clumping logic from bee balm applies. 3 to 5 plants together make a target the birds spot from the air. Water it in the first season, about once a week, and after that, it handles itself. It's not the loudest plant in the garden, but it's one of the most reliable. Still pouring nectar on a day when everything else has crisped up. The show goes on when it's brutal outside. At some point, you've probably thought about trumpet creeper. Big red-orange trumpets, hummingbirds everywhere. It looks incredible. Then you hear what it actually does to a yard, and you back away. Crossvine gives you most of what you wanted without any of that. Bignonia caprillata has the big tubular flowers, loaded with nectar, sized right for a bill. And in spring, it puts on a mass bloom that's genuinely impressive. Migrating birds hit it hard. It's a calorie dump at exactly the right moment in the season. Tangerine Beauty is an easy one to find, and it blooms heavily. The difference from trumpet creeper is how it climbs. Tendrils, not root suckers. It grabs a fence or an arbor, and it stays there. It doesn't rampage underground. Train it where you can see morning traffic. That's when hummingbirds are most active, working their circuit before midday. Full sun for the best bloom. It's a legitimate wow factor plant, and it earns its space without turning into a regret later. Here's where people go wrong with honeysuckle. You plant the one that smells incredible, sweet, heavy, unmistakable, and the hummingbirds ignore it. That's Lanicara japonica. It's invasive in most of the country, and it's pollinated by moths, not birds. It's got the wrong color, the wrong scent, the wrong tube. Hummingbirds don't care that it smells good. Lanicara sempervirens is the other one. Coral honeysuckle, red and orange, long tubes, no real fragrance, because it doesn't need to attract moths. It needs to attract birds, and it works. It blooms in spring and keeps reblooming into fall. The tubes are exactly the length of a hummingbird bill, and they refill fast, which means a bird that visits at 8 in the morning will be back again at 10. Major Wheeler is a heavy bloomer. If you see it at your nursery, grab it. This is the vine that turns on daily flybys for months, and one vine is enough to start. Plant it 12 inches from a trellis or mailbox post. It needs 6 or more hours of sun. Tie it loosely with soft figure 8 ties so the stem isn't pinched. Water it deep once a week for the first month. Then it finds its feet. After the first big flush of blooms, give it a light trim, and it'll push more. One vine. That's the move. By late summer, most gardens are tired. The blooms are done or ragged, you've stopped deadheading, and you've accepted that hummingbird season is basically over. It doesn't have to be. Lobelia cardinalis, cardinal flower, is a native plant that hits its stride in August and September, exactly when the birds need to be loading up for migration. The red is almost unreal, this deep, saturated crimson on vertical spikes. The tubes are narrow, and the nectar is sucrose-rich, the kind birds digest fast. Everything about the flower is calibrated for a hovering bird. The tube excludes short-tongued insects the same way columbine does. The payoff is big, and the competition is low. It wants moisture. Edge of a rain garden next to a downspout, anywhere your soil stays a little damp. Part sun is fine. Mulch around the roots to keep them cool. When the main spike finishes, cut it back, and the side branches will bloom. Clump 3 to 5 together, and you've got a target that's hard to miss from the air. The garden lights back up in August. That's not a small thing. That's the birds tanking up before they leave. Doing it in your yard, on the schedule you built for them. You weren't crazy. The color first advice set you up to fail. Hummingbirds are little fuel pumps with bills and tongues shaped for tubes, not petals. That's why the doubles got ignored and the feeder hung still. The 7 plants you just heard, columbine and crossvine opening the spring, coral honeysuckle bridging all the way to fall, bee balm and penstemon carrying the summer heat, anise sage and cardinal flower closing the season. Those are the rungs of a relay that keeps nectar coming from April to frost. You don't need all 7 this week. You need 1. Here's what to do. Find a Lonicera sempervirens, Major Wheeler if you see it, and plant it 12 inches from a trellis, a mailbox post, a fence rail. 6 or more hours of sun. Tie it loosely. Water it deep once a week for the first month. That vine will start working for you this season and keep working for years. The feeder can stay. But the yard that's on their daily circuit, the one your neighbor has, that's built out of tubes, not tricks. Now you know exactly what to plant and why it works. The bare spot is still there.